Hello and welcome to another Board Crazy review. I am D. I am joined, as ever, by...
Oh, it's Will. Lance Corporal Will, winner of the last game. Yeah, Lance Corporal Wilhelm.
Okay.
So, as you notice, cameras are a little different. That's mainly because we want to play this game. So, I figured just set the cameras up one way, and then we'll continue on from there.
Yeah, so you can look forward to a second playing of this game on the channel in the short future, probably.
There's a chance that we might have to miss a week, but instead of missing a week, we'll just put out another playthrough of this. So it's not really missing a week. It just won't be 2 videos. It'll be 1 playthrough.
So we're going to run my introduction to this game for any people who haven't watched our gameplay and are unfamiliar with how it works, so that you have a little understanding of how it plays before we get talking about it.
Indeed.
There will be a timestamp listed that you can skip to if you'd like, but here that goes. Undaunted Normandy is a game for 1 to 2 players, designed by David Thompson and Trevor Benjamin, and published by Osprey Games. In this deck-building game, players control American and German forces in recreations of battles that took place at Normandy in the summer of 1944. The game comes with a dozen scenarios, which can be played individually or as a campaign. Each scenario describes how the game should be set up, from which cards are used to how the board tiles are arranged. Each scenario also provides both sides with an objective they must achieve in order to win. At the start of every round, both sides draw 4 cards from their decks. The decks at the start of the game are comprised of only a small selection of cards, with the rest remaining part of the supply. These cards from the supply can be added to the game via certain actions. Once both players have drawn 4 cards, they choose one of those cards, and they're revealed simultaneously. The player whose card has the higher initiative value will go first during that round. Those cards are then discarded. When it's a player's turn, they may play as many cards from their hand as they wish and use 1 action per card. They may alternatively choose to hunker down and discard a card back to their supply if they don't want to be part of their deck at that time. Card actions come in 3 different types. There are movement actions, which allow players to scout the terrain and move their combat counters around the board. There are also support actions, which involve the manipulation of cards and taking control of tiles. And then there are also combat actions, which involve making attacks on enemy forces. There are over a dozen specific actions, however, so we'll cover them more in depth as we play the game. There are 2 different victory conditions in this game, however both sides will only be given one in particular to complete. One condition involves controlling a certain number of objective points on the board, while the other involves removing all of your opponent's riflemen from the game. The game ends immediately once one side has achieved their objective, with that side being declared the winner. Okay, so Undaunted Normandy, a game you've played here with our friend Denga.
Yes.
In this very chair he sat, and now I am in his seat. What's your first thought on Undaunted Normandy? My
first thought was that this is an excellent gateway game into wargaming, which can be sometimes intimidating. You know, when you see like serious wargamers and they have all these counters and sometimes minis and all this tactics, and then this game finds a way to take all that, like the essence of it, the best essence of it, which is the tactics and fighting, and simplify it down to what I would call a very light and manageable package. Light once you learn, there's a good amount of rules to learn, but once you learn them, it really flows. So I would say that's my first thought. It's very accessible, great gateway into war games.
Gateway into war games. I agree. I do think that as far as war games go, this is definitely a manageable one. So as far as like playing it, like the gameplay goes, I really, what I think is maybe one of the better things about this is that every decision really matters.
Yep.
There's a weight to it because, I mean, some people will probably be turned off by this, but you know, you're really restricted into what you can do. Well, some turns you'll have the option to sort of like take a card back into your hand or draw new, depending on what cards you have in your hand. But a lot of times, you know, you got a machine gun, or you got a rifleman rather, and you need to take control of an area. Well, you can move, you can shoot, or you can try to control. You know, it's a slow process.
And only riflemen can establish control over a region of the board.
Yeah, I mean, you have to scout it first, and then you have to go in.
And you're right, and then they can only move 1 spot at a time, and they can only move into spots that have been pre-scouted.
So it's 1 action per turn, per character for the most part.
Which thematically makes sense, because you would want, your infantry would come in after your recon scout troops into areas that have been pre-scouted, so they know what to deal with.
Yeah.
That all makes sense, but that doesn't change the fact that you're right. In the moment, especially early, when you're not used to this game, it does feel kind of like, just can't do anything.
Yeah, a lot of games you'll be like a move and attack system, or if you move into somewhere where there's an enemy, you immediately have an attack. And this, no, you have to really plan like turns ahead how exactly you want to attack. And the board's always changing because you always have to adapt to your opponent.
No, that's not always a bad thing, though, because the game does encourage you sometimes to think, like, maybe I should just never move this unit, or maybe only move them once. Especially like units like machine gunners. Moving really isn't going to be their thing. It's really going to be about, like, where am I going to post them? And basically they're going to, like, post up and defend. Yeah. Or, you know, depending on the attack, you might have to move them. But you get what I mean. Like,
there, you shall not pass.
So you'll quickly understand that the veil of this, like, restrictive gameplay will be lifted, and you'll realize that, like, they've accounted for it in the way they've designed the maps and the way where they've placed them to start. Especially when you're playing kind of the defender role, you quickly realize, wait a minute, I don't really need to move all that much, and then it feels a lot less restrictive.
No, but everything in this game feels really well considered, though.
Yeah,
like I mean, like you mentioned the board and the way different ways it gets set up, the different terrain and like the defense they provide, every single different type of soldier and the different things they can do.
Yep.
At first, this game, not to forgive the pun, but it's a little daunting, honestly. Like reading the rule book, it throws a lot of terminology at you. Tells you everything you need to know, and once you do understand it, the game is quite intuitive.
There are a good number of actions.
There are a lot of simple things you can do.
They're easy to understand and easy to execute, but there's a lot of them. So it just comes down to like repetition and learning what each one does and each one means.
So I guess we could talk about how do you feel about the combat in this game? It is dice-based.
Dice-based combat bothers a lot of people. It's one of the reasons a lot of people avoid games like Risk or something, because you can make a great strategy and then just never roll a hit, and you can be undone by it all. And that can happen in this game. But here's something that's really important to remember. This game is not a simulation of the USA, you know, like pushing the Germans back constantly like they did in the actual Battle of Normandy. This game is supposed to give both sides an equal shot at winning. So Germany can win this game and change. Well, you're not changing history. It's a board game, so you're not changing history.
Thank God for that.
But you can temporarily. Both sides have a chance to win.
Yeah.
A lot of that has to do with the fact that the dice could go either way at any time. Because I've noticed that, I mean, and rightfully so, a lot of times the Germans are at a slight disadvantage. They usually don't have as many men. They're in more defensive positions sometimes. In some scenarios, they're forced into land that is lower near bodies of water to protect bridges and stuff like that. And that means that they're way more exposed and outnumbered. So sometimes it can feel daunting to play as the Germans. But my main point is the dice rolling does do a good job of sometimes giving both sides an equal chance.
I think it's pretty well considered, personally. I think between the terrain and the defense values that each type of soldier has, and the distance that has to be taken into account.
And then later on hills as well.
Yeah,
so elevation becomes part of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think normally a straight die roll would not be my preferred way to resolve a combat scenario.
Yeah.
But in this, I think, you can definitely stack the odds in your favor. And it's just another aspect of the strategy. I think it actually works here. It's simple and quick.
You can stack the odds. They may not go in your favor.
No, I mean, roll. Luck is always a thing. And also, I like the whole 0 is always a hit thing. I like you can just, take a wild shot across the board in a moment of desperation, and
a scout could kill a sniper from across.
That's the sort of thing that results in great moments, and I think that's a good
frustrating
choice.
Moments.
Depending on what side you're on, but it's still great.
It is.
Also, I love the modular aspect of this game. Obviously, the scenarios provided give you a bunch of replayability on its own. But I mean, you can play this however you want, really. You can set up your own boards, your own decks, and just kind of go crazy with this. You could replay this constantly if you wanted to.
I believe people already have started to, fans of the games have already started to create their own scenarios.
Yeah.
And there are more scenarios than just 10 during the invasion of Normandy. Or you could even go to a different stage of the war. You could do market garden and stuff, but use these same tiles and create a new scenario.
The only restriction that you really have is just what is the limits of what's in the box. You have 18 tiles.
And let's talk about restrictions, because it's one of my main criticisms. We've been kind of been very glowing about the game so far, but I think one thing that I've noticed about the game is because it is so simple and streamlined. So this is it's hard sometimes to criticize a game because what it's trying to be hurts it. But what it's trying to be in this case, which is a streamlined war game, does hurt it sometimes. Because sometimes it feels like one side will have too much of an advantage than the other. Even with the dice rolling can even everything out. But Remember how I mentioned that like units having to protect a bridge, like or protect a body of water, so they're in low ground, so they're easier to hit, and they might get like surrounded. In real war, there would be a little bit more like there'd be more dynamics in play. Like,
well, sure.
Like machine gunners, for instance, wouldn't just be out in the open in like a field. They would create some sort of probably barricade or sandbag wall or something. You know, or like if the units got close, they blow up the bridge and to prevent them from crossing. Because sometimes it can feel just like your guys standing in a field.
Sometimes it is your guys.
Snipers are so powerful sometimes in this game. You can just start picking dudes off everywhere. Like. And what I'm saying is that like there's no like cover and stuff like that hasn't been especially in the early scenarios isn't accounted for at all. Like the hills sort of starts to bring in the idea of elevation and stuff, but I think that'll bother some more experienced wargamers that there's just not. Sometimes it can feel like the deck is stacked against you just because the game is so simple and they had to do it for the scenario. But I don't know if thematically it makes the most sense.
Maybe not, but I think that's probably a good concession in this case.
It is.
If I have a criticism, like the main criticism at least, just that the game it's too long.
Yeah.
For what I think, at least compared to how it's marketed.
When you get good at the game too, like when you understand the mechanics of the game, it can take a long time. It's marketed as a simple. It's marketed as a 60-minute game,
which is
on the box.
Generous.
Our shortest session so far was around 90 minutes. Our longest pushed close to 2.5 hours.
I think it's close to 3.
Well, there were a few pauses.
Maybe. Yeah, you're right.
Had to do things, but
So. Yeah, I mean, for a beginner, it's easy to learn for a beginner. It might try your patience, though. It's kind of the flip side of the whole, like how restricted your actions are per turn. So it takes a long time just to do anything in this game. And assuming the dice are playing fair and people both sides kind of have similar luck, it's kind of feel like a stalemate at times. Even if both sides are trying to play smart.
Yeah, one thing the game makes smart, though, is as the game sort of grows... What the game makes smart? Did I just say that?
Game makes smart.
One thing the game does well, though, is as the game grows and the scenarios get more complicated, they introduce mortars and mortarmen. What's good about that is you can start hitting more than one unit at a time.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a good design decision because now, all of a sudden, you can start killing more troops at a faster pace, which does speed up the game. But still, you're looking at least probably...
a couple hours.
Yeah. Well, I would say account for at least 90 minutes. I like the Fog of War cards.
Yeah, no, definitely. I like the Fog of War cards. I also kind of related. I really like the initiative system in this game. The sort of the give and take between, do I want to waste a good card and get the initiative, or do I just want to play it safe here and keep my powerful cards?
Yeah, and there's almost like a poker-esque quality sometimes to it, where you draw your first 4 cards and you can kind of look at your opponent, and based on their body language, you can tell if they drew a lot of Fog of Wars, if they didn't draw any. That can sometimes lead to intense moments where it's like, do I want to give up the initiative?
Just that initiative itself is actually... It's valuable in this game.
Yes.
Not only just going first is good, but also the ability, if you were to hit the correct opponent, you can remove a card from your opponent's hand before they even go, which is just a fantastic feeling. You understand.
I've never done it somehow. In all our playthroughs, I get bad luck with that. But it's horrible when it's really hard. It feels so soul-crushing.
Yeah.
When someone takes 1 or 2 of your 3 cards. Oh, man. Now, why don't we move on to the components?
All right. Well, before, more than components, it was kind of components. I think one of my favorite things about this game is, compared to other war games at least, how more intimate it is and personal. Like it's not a big it's not the map of Europe and you've got little faceless plastic figures on the map you're moving around and slaughtering. You have people with names.
Rudolf Wagner, my platoon sergeant.
Yeah.
Gunter Haas, my scout or squad leader.
It's a little thing, but you get so much more immersion, I think, when you've got people with names and with faces who you can get attached to. You can keep track of who is, killing people.
Who's taking people out.
Yeah.
Who's been useless.
Yeah, I really think that's great. And also, I like the smaller scale of the boards as well. I like this kind of pastoral setting compared to just, again, like a big... Just a generic map. I think this...
And it was a smart idea doing this, because this is definitely something that can be iterated. Like, the idea of it can be iterated.
It is ripe for expansions and sequels, and
there's a sequel coming. We're going to talk... I can mention that at the end of the video.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, so, but beyond that, though, beyond like that, I think the components are mostly quite good. At least more or less. You know, I like the board tiles. I think they're nice. They're thick enough to stay together, which is always good. The art on the cards is cool.
It's close to cut and paste, but they do little touches. Just like
they're definitely
this guy's mouth is shut, this guy's mouth is open, this guy's two eyes are open when he's aiming down the sights, the other guy's one eye is shut, and then there's just slightly like they just change up everything just enough so that each person has a little. And then the artwork is it's simple but very striking.
Yeah, and generally speaking,
I really like it. I think any more color or anything, it would have looked silly.
It works really well. I think the components not like amazing mechanics or anything that's gonna like blow your mind. It's just standard stuff for the most part, but it's well put together, I think.
It is very well put together.
It's as good as it needs to be.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, one thing, big, actually, fairly sizable criticism I have. I don't understand why they didn't include reference cards. It's real confusing.
So in my mind, here's what I'm thinking they're thinking. That it's a two-player game, right? So people can just pass this quick reference in the rule. But it's just more awkward, right? Than this is
just have a reference card. Eventually, you will get familiar with it. You won't have to keep looking stuff up. But there's a lot of different actions you can do. Some of them are kind of similar, and the names aren't necessarily so distinct that you're going to constantly remember what each thing is. Like what's command versus inspire. Or whatever.
It would have been nice if there were reference cards.
Or at the very least, just put this page on the back of the rule book, so you don't have to keep opening it.
Keeping it open. Yeah.
It's strange. Yeah, but I think it's kind of... Anything else we need to talk about before we wrap it up, Will?
No, I'm good. I have said my piece.
All right. Yeah, so, I mean...
Final thoughts.
Give some scores here. I think it's a really good game.
Yes.
I think we've covered that, it's a good game for anyone who's into war games, new or veteran.
Yes. Or in between.
Semi-pun there. Yeah, and... Again, the only issue, again, is the time. If you're the sort of person who just does not have the time to sit down for 2 hours and play...
this is going to be the closest to that experience in that time frame. So while that is a lot for a light game, it's still way shorter than spending an afternoon standing around a table making tactical decisions on a giant map.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely better than like Diplomacy or Risk or anything like that.
Or Axis and Allies.
Yeah, but no, you're right. It is. It's just, that aspect, again, might turn some people off, and it's not going to be a game for everyone.
No.
Especially between that and also between the theme, is not going to be a game for everyone.
No.
But if you are into that kind of game, if you're like us, then I think this is a very easy recommendation. I'm going to give this game I'm going to give it 4 stars out of 5.
Yeah, because it has some problems.
It's not my favorite game ever. There are other games that I would probably play over this if I just, if I had the time. But yeah, that's still an excellent game. Will?
Technically, I'm a historian.
I don't think that's how it works, but go on.
Well, let's just say I have a degree in history. So I understand history. I like history. I love how this game treats the battle. I love the scenarios and how it grows. I love it. It's the only word I can use for it. I think it's so smart, both from a gameplay and a story perspective. It just grows and grows and grows. It ends in this big, battle. But you're right. There are some problems with its pacing sometimes. The dice rolling can lead to some annoying moments. But for the most part, everything is accounted for to make up for all that, to give you other moments where it's just glorious or I don't know. It's a really good 2-player game. It's a really good introductory war game. And while I'm not going to give it an A+, because I'm not sure they exist, I am going to give it an A.
Okay.
Because I think another thing is that it's a game that can be iterated almost endlessly because it was so well designed.
Yeah.
And that's where I want to come to the point. Now, we're not getting paid by Osprey to mention this or anything, but we like Osprey games to make good games.
They could pay us.
We're open to the idea. But they make really good games. And I believe not too long ago they announced Undaunted North Africa. So they're going to be moving this game. They're making a sequel to the Northern African theater. A theater of war that I would say most people just don't have much knowledge about. They may know it happened, but they don't really understand the scale of it and how important it was.
Yeah.
And that I cannot wait for. If they can even expand and maybe add more movement, because North Africa was a lot of open vehicle battles,
tanks.
If they can do that, and they can put, oh man, I will be all in.
I think it would be strange if they made the game and didn't have tanks. That's it for our review of Undaunted Normandy. Thank you for watching it. If you enjoyed, you can, of course, give us a thumbs up, which is always appreciated. You can subscribe to the channel. If you haven't yet, you can leave some comments as well. Any thoughts you have on the game itself, or thoughts on the game, whatever you want to say is fine with us.
Hopefully Graham will be back soon. Hopefully we'll get to play this with him.
Graham will be back soon.
Soon is relative. Soon to now.
Before the end of the year.
Yes, he'll be back before the end of 2019.
Absolutely. We missed him.
We do.
And we hope you have too.
Thank you for reviewing this with me.
You're welcome, Will.
This was good.
Yep.
And I'm ready to stomp you. And I think it's going to happen.
We'll see. Till then, goodbye.
See ya.
What the
heck was that?
That was my song.